You're listening to Stand Tall and Own It, the podcast for high-performing female leaders who are ready to make an impact by discovering the safety that comes from understanding their own value and exercising their own authority. I'm your host, Andrea Johnson, and I'm here to tell you it is time to just truly be you, my strong friend. It's time to stand tall and own it. Hi there, welcome back to another episode of Stand Tall and Own It. I am your host, Andrea Johnson, and I am glad that you are here. We are in our fifth and what looks to be the final installment of my holiday stress and how to manage it mini-series. We're looking at what it means to kind of take care of yourself between all the stresses of everything that happens between early November and mid-January, especially here in the United States with all the different holidays that happen. And so far, we've looked at avoiding disappointment by managing and communicating your expectations, understanding and dealing with family stresses. Whew, that was a good one. And then the whole food and body image gratitude topic that comes with, being able to say, I love my food and I love my body and it's all going to be okay. That one was 2 episodes ago. And last episode was establishing and strengthening your own personal boundaries. Today, we're going to wrap it all up with what it means and how we can actually just get quiet and reflect on 2023. I personally need to slow down during the holidays. I learned this the hard way. I've kind of known this all of my life. It's kind of a natural rhythm if we just kind of go with the rhythms of the seasons. But I really learned this the hard way last year. And I've shared before on this podcast how a friend of mine said, Andrea, you need to look forward to next year. This was November of 22. And she said, you need to go forward 12 months in November and say, this is what I'm feeling today. And I don't want to feel this next year. And so I learned to block off things in certain months of my calendar. That's been a really good practice. It doesn't mean I don't do anything. It just means that I'm a little bit more conscious of trying not to put things. I still see clients, but I try not to put things on certain months. And December is one of them. I knew I needed to slow down. I've learned how to say no to a few things, but I've also said yes to a few things. And I'll share below some more specific examples of what that means. But today, what I want to look at is a little bit of an insight into how I do getting quiet and reflecting and why I need to do it and why I want to share it with you. For instance, I thought I might do a little mood lighting, but when you do that with video, it doesn't quite work. But I have a candle burning over there so I can smell the lovely scent that is going on. And I don't have any quiet music on. And trust me, this is not going to be a guided meditation. I am not that. I love listening to them, but I am no good at it. But it is going to be just a short little, I hope, short little podcast episode on why getting quiet and being able to reflect on the year is important and how I do it. Now, reflecting and journaling is in almost any mindfulness practice that you actually, if you go to a mindfulness expert or if you go to a website that tells you these are some good mindfulness practices, they're almost always going to include some kind of reflection and or journaling. Why? Well, because it's a stress reliever. And if we're talking about managing stress through the holidays, getting quiet and reflecting is really important, and it's a really good way to do it. For me, just having the silence in the house helps, and I'll share a little bit in a little bit what quiet sounds like or looks like for me. But it also gives you an opportunity, especially if you're doing journaling, to kind of name your thoughts and feelings. Just naming things gives them, it takes all the power away. It gives them this much more even quality so that when I write down that I'm angry or I write down that I'm anxious, which I really had an anxious week this last week. But when I do that, it removes the power that they have. But it also gives you an ability or a time to process all of those thoughts and feelings or some circumstances and situations you might be in. So doing the reflection process and doing some journaling is going to help you in those areas. So if you're not somebody who's ever done those things before, never fear. If you need a system or if you need all the details and you want a really serious view into what I call my own rhythms of reflection, you can scroll back in the podcast app, whichever one you're listening to one that's called The Rhythms of Reflection. And it was put out on June 6th, 2022. And if it's still in there numbered, it's episode number episode number 89. I'm going to link to it in the show notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to put it in the comments below so that you can check it out, because that was before I was putting them out on video. But what that is, and it seems really, really intricate when you listen to it, the show notes have all kinds of detail, but it's my system that has served me for about 5 years now. And it kind of walks through how I see the rhythms in nature, the rhythms in our lives, of the way the sun sets and the sun rises, or the way the seasons change. So I tend to do reflection on those kinds of rhythms. I do a weekly, I do a monthly, sometimes I do quarterly, based on the season. We do seasonal cleanings. There's all kinds of things that we do naturally as humans that have to do with rhythms and with seasons and with the way things naturally occur. And I find that if you try to build a habit for reflection and or journaling and or just getting quiet, if you build a habit into those things that are actually natural for us, it's much easier to do. But I will, again, link to that, and I'll probably mention it again. It's episode 89, The Rhythms of Reflection, from June 6th, 2022. So what does quiet look like? Everybody's going to have a different definition. I interviewed a guest who she would say, I just got real quiet. And I just thought about things. What does that mean? And it wasn't the first time I'd been introduced to being quiet, but she used that word in a way that made me think about it very differently. And so you need to figure out what quiet looks like for you. It could very well just be it being in a safe place. But for me, my definition is many times is an actual literal quiet. Like I'm at home or I'm in another place where I feel safe. But it means that I'm allowing my mind the space to just take that deep breath and just say, all right, where am I? What am I doing? What is going on with me? And sometimes when you get really, really quiet, you actually can hear the thoughts instead of having them banging up against each other. Sometimes they line up in a nice little queue and go, here's this thought, and then here's this thought. And then if you're journaling, if you're writing things down, then it gives you the opportunity to kind of put all that on paper. I have a client who recently started journaling, and she said, I'm really shocked with how well my thoughts just flow out of my pen. And, you can't be a perfectionist. You can't make them perfect. You could do them, I don't care where you do them. You could do them on the computer. You could do them I have a couple of journals, and I didn't bring any of them down here before I started recording. I just grabbed my computer and came on down to record. But I have a planner that I think it's a Clever Fox. If you go back through some of the downloads that I have, there's links to the planners that I use. And then I have a journal that is specifically for what I call my Bible study or my quiet time in the morning. And having a space to write those things down and using my hands and making that a manual tactile thing really helps. But I also have a Google document that I fill out. So it's just however you need to do that, just allowing your mind the space to take that deep breath is really important. I think ambience for me is a big deal. Like I said, I would love to have mood lighting. I do have my Christmas lights on over here. I don't have a lot of other lights on other than what I need to record this video. When I was sitting upstairs working on my outline, I had my Christmas lights on and I had the window open, but I didn't have a lot of other lights on in the house. So a good example for me of what it would look like for being quiet is on Saturday mornings between mid-November, especially by Thanksgiving, all the way through mid to end of January. I use Saturday mornings for fireplace time. As long as I have firewood and I don't have someplace else to be, which rarely happens, I'm pretty good about not scheduling my Saturday mornings anywhere. I'm in front of the fireplace and I'm literally being quiet. Every once in a while I might have some music on, but for me, being able to sit there and let the fire crackle, tend to the fire, feel its warmth, all of those things, the smells, the sights, the way my dog lays in front of it with her belly facing it, all those things really kind of add to the space that I need for my brain to get really quiet. And then I'm able to reflect better and journal. Another thing I might do is read like reflective pieces or books or poetry or a deeper theologian, something like that. The main point for me is having no agenda, no rush, no demands. It allows my mind to be free. Now, I can't then chastise myself in the afternoon for not getting anything quote unquote done, but I'm teaching myself to get there so that I have that quiet time on a weekly basis. But I think it's extremely important during the holidays, which is why almost every Saturday morning you're going to find me in front of my fireplace. Another place I like to get quiet is I like to spend time in nature, and this is all year round. In the summer, it might be by my pool, it might be out at the ocean, it might be the mountains, especially for you. You might be a mountain person instead of a water person. But being outside allows me to hear the sounds of the birds and the crickets and the frogs and the snapping of the tree branches when I walk if I'm in the woods, or the rustling of the leaves. Maybe I even clean the weeds out of my garden and I celebrate the beauty of them. But it just gives me an opportunity to be present. So quiet helps us get present and helps us be more aware of our surroundings, and to kind of like focus on wonder, the wonder of anything that we're experiencing or even what's going on in our brains. And the other piece is, especially during the holidays, I take naps. I have always been a maybe napper. Like, I'm not one of those people that's never, and I'm not one of those people that's always. I am if it feels like it, I'm in a nap. In the winter or during the holiday time, I find when you sit down and you get quiet and you get still, you'll be surprised at how you recognize that your body is really tired. And if you need the nap, take the nap. I came home from church this last Sunday and we were there a little bit longer. In case you don't know, my husband is a pastor. And I think it was 2:00 before I sat down with my bowl of chicken noodle soup for lunch. And when I finished that, I was so droopy. My beagle was snuggled up next to me on the couch and she was warm, and I just kind of fell over. And of course, within 5 minutes, she kind of moved out from underneath me because it was like, that's a little too much, Mom. But I slept for about 30 minutes and I woke and felt so refreshed. So give yourself permission to do whatever you need to do to be quiet. And if it means taking a nap or putting on some really quiet music or no music or being outside, or like me, being in front of the fireplace, find what those things are for you. Where are the places that you feel the most safe, secure, solid, right? You feel the good weightiness in your body. Those are the spaces that you can go, or the way you can set up your environment to feel and be quiet. Next, once we get quiet, it's the time for reflection. And if you go back to episode 89 and listen to my rhythms of reflection, it might sound like a huge system. And for me, somebody like me, if you're like me at all, I mean, some people call us type A's. I'm an Enneagram 6. I'm one of those people that feels like if there's a project to be done, I don't need to be sitting around, right? It's very important not to turn my review process into an action. I want to keep it quiet and reflective, because if it's an action and it feels perfunctory and I have to do it, then I get nothing out of it. And I want to say maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, I did my weekly review and I was sitting in front of the television when I did it. And I was like, this is stupid. Why am I doing this? But that's exactly what happens when you don't actually get quiet. So it was a good opportunity for me to say, this is not how I want to do this. And so the next week I waited till the next morning and I did my review on Sunday after, like the next day, like Sunday afternoon. But keeping it quiet and reflective means that it's productive. John Maxwell says, experience is not the best teacher, but evaluated experience is. So taking the time to reflect on the week, on the month, or the quarter, or the year means that you're looking at and evaluating what you experienced, what you went through, your wins, your losses, your challenges, all those kinds of things. And I still do them on a weekly and a monthly basis. It may be that I add quarterly back in 2024, but 2023, I just needed a break. And I will be doing a yearly review at the end of December. Now, I use I think it's Clever Fox, I think is the brand. I'll put a link or something in the show notes for you, but I use that because one of the reasons I like that planner is because it has a spot for my weekly wins. My Google form that I started, years ago, I was using Brendan Burchard's planners, and it has a morning and an evening, and then it has a weekly review, and it has a monthly review. And I started those processes when I was using his planners, and now I have my own Google Forms that I use. And when I go into them, I actually am surprised at how much I learn, because I do the same format that I use with all of my clients every time I meet with them. So if you ever met with me as a client, the first thing I would ask you each time is, what are your wins? Because we want to celebrate our wins and the good things that happened to us, the good things that we made happen. What are your challenges? What are the things you struggled with this last week or month or year? And how did you overcome them? Or how can you do better this next time? And then the things that you're working on, what is your status updates? And these are the kind of things I review. I've been trying to get my own personal small business registration through for a really long time. And there's just so many hoops to jump through. And I get overwhelmed with how many rules and regulations there are. But that just keeps moving forward on the status. And each week I get a little bit closer. And then the last piece for all of that is what's next, right? Based on the wins, based on the challenges and the status updates, what's next for me? What's next in my week? What's next in my month or my year? And being able to do that, actually, let me give you a really good example. Last week was just really hard. My anxiety was like way out the top of my head. My friends are even checking on me still this week to make sure I'm okay. But being able to deal with that, or a part of being able to deal with that, is being able to do the reflective process. And when I did my November review, I went back and looked at everything. I had no idea that I had accomplished so much in November. And I was able to say, oh my goodness, these great things happened. I did these things. I accomplished this. I did way more than I realized. And I did it all in 3 weeks because I had Thanksgiving in there. So being able to say, I overcame, or these things happened, all of those things really help you move forward into the next month. And that's not only for a week or only for a month. It happens for a year as well. So as I move into the end of December and I'm going to do my yearly review, let me give you a couple of examples that I've already noticed so that you can get started on your own yearly review. Okay. So in my regular journal, I started a new thing this year because if you go back through my podcast, you'll hear it. I had no word for the year. I just was a little bit directionless. And so in the front of my Bible study journal, I actually put, the beginning. What does the beginning of the year look like? And then July, I said the middle. And then I've already started the end of the year as at the beginning of December. I did that this week. But in January, I began the year with no direction, no word of the year. I had no certainty in many areas. I was trying out new patterns of thinking, new ideas. I was learning how to allow things to happen rather than pushing them to happen. And it was just a time of, I just don't know. Well, by the time I went forward to July, I had a much clearer vision. The road seemed wider, and I was in the company of all these brilliant people. Man, God has just put amazing people in my life and has connected me with so many people. But some of that happened due to the lack of clarity that I had and my desire and my curiosity to get out there and find it. So looking back on the year in July, I had a deeper understanding and acceptance of myself and how I get to show up as I was created, which answered a lot of the questions that I had at the beginning of the year. It's no secret that, this is going to be something that I'll share a lot more about in 2024, but the last couple of years, went through a very serious deconstruction, reconstruction of my faith. And when you do that, it kind of bleeds out into all the other areas of your life. If you're somebody like me, who's been in the faith community since before I was born, I kind of joke and say, yeah, it's genetic for me. But, having that deeper understanding and acceptance of myself, looking back, I needed that this last week when I was in such a state of anxiety. And I don't need to go into what it was for, but sometimes we don't even know what it's for, right? But here's what I found. I'm going to read you a quote from my journal because I want you to see how sometimes just writing down the stream of consciousness, the things that you know at the moment, will really help you later on down the road. This is what I wrote in July. I said, no more apologizing or trying to be someone I'm not. No anger, no fear, no regret. This is who I am. I can share my wisdom and not invest in the outcome. I can share my vision, knowing it can change with the circumstances. I can connect without clinging, teach with freedom, live a life without labels, the freedom of not identifying. That statement was so profound for me. I guess it was profound then. I don't even remember writing it, y'all. But when I reread that, I had to rewrite it out again for myself. And then, of course, I'm sharing it with you because it was just so profound being reminded that just even 6 months ago, this is where I was. And it's like, oh, that's why you did all these things. And you had the courage to do stuff like rebranding the podcast, moving in a deeper direction in the topics of the podcast, kind of going all in on being the core values lady, all of those things, picking up new speaking and workshop opportunities and kind of going a little bit bolder in the direction of my business. That's where I got the courage to do that. And now at the end of the year, I can look back and say, haha, let's detail all of that out and be reminded so that I can enter 2024 with all kinds of renewed hope and faith and excitement and energy for what's in store to come. So had I not gone back and found that, I would be kind of like floundering it all over again at the end of 23, like I was at the end of 22. But now I'm reminded that I get to give myself permission to be all that, whatever it is. I'm so much more confident in my direction as a speaker, a workshop leader, a trainer, a teacher, a podcaster, and still, yes, a coach. But I can look back at the lessons that I've learned, the books I've read, the talks I've developed and delivered, the connections I've made, some amazing connections, some business ventures that I tried and consequently shut down because they don't work, and even some other personal experiments, like, in case you hadn't noticed, letting my hair color grow out. It's almost all gray and white now. The quiet and reflection allow me to decompress from 2023, because no matter how great of a year you've had or I've had, we still need to decompress. That's just the rhythms of our lives. We need that. Your phone battery goes down, you've got to recharge it overnight. You need this time to recharge your battery. But the quiet and reflection give me what I need for 2024. They remind me what I know to be true. Right? All those wonderful things about me, things about God, things about you, about my clients, about my business and the way I'm going to work in the world and the way I'm going to show up, all those things. It gives me the opportunity to remind myself about the hope for even more of that stuff in the future. It gives me the opportunity to set intentions and maybe even goals this year. Who knows? But it also gives me clarity on my personal and business plans, whether or not I have goals. So if at the end of this 5-episode series, the holiday season is still really stressful for you, I would invite you to go back and check out your own expectations. Look at how you're handling your interactions with your family, what your expectations are there, what your boundaries are there, maybe how you could handle things differently. Even if it's too late for 2023 holiday season, make 2024 a wonderful one for you. I invite you to look at how you're handling food and body image issues during this time of heightened calories and fat and sugar and all the wonderful stuff. And what about your boundaries? How are they? Are they in place? Are they in a good spot? And then just give yourself, when you look at all of those things, the permission and the gift of getting quiet and doing some reflection. This is a gift that you cannot ungive yourself. It will keep giving, I promise, because once you really get in the rhythm of doing it, you will not want to go back. Now, again, if you want a more systematized or detailed description of my rhythms of reflection process, go back and check out episode 89, The Rhythms of Reflection from June 6, 2022, and I will put that in the show notes. It is a good time at the end of the year to look at how you need to understand your core values, right? Of course, everything that I mention is always in the show notes, the links to everything. I've got a free download, which you just go to my website and /core values exercise. It's a free download. It'll get you started. If you need something more, you can always go to my digital course. This is a great gift to give yourself for the holidays. It is just go to my website and then /values. It's 4 modules with an intro, so it's 6 total, but it's like it's a much simpler, or not much simpler. It's a simple way to actually walk through the exercise and give yourself the ability to do 4 modules over 4 weeks. But if you find that you need more help, I would love the privilege of helping you uncover your own core values through what I call my pilot or alpha testing of a hybrid model, which includes the course, the digital course, and individual coaching, 4 individual coaching modules and meetings with me regarding each one of those, so that it's a little bit of a back and forth. If you're somebody who needs, like me, the reflexive process of the conversation, you can do that. How about your communication of your expectations and your boundaries? You might need to know your DISC wiring. And if you've never done that, you can go to my website /DISC. I have a whole page with, yet again, several levels of options and opportunities for you, starting with an assessment, then an assessment plus a 90-minute debrief, or the full package of the assessment, the debrief, and then 2 more one-on-one coaching meetings, which will give you a personal growth plan for 2024. And of course, if you're still working on your boundaries, my little masterclass, Healthy Boundaries Make Happy Holidays, is also available. And it's my website /Healthy Boundaries. And, that's an opportunity for you to really kind of be more intentional about making this holiday season happy with totally different expectations and joyful anticipation. As you get quiet and reflect on 2023, I'd love to hear from you. What helped? What did I share with you that helped? What resonated with you? What are your big struggles? Maybe you want to share with me your wins, your challenges, your status, and your updates and your next, right? Please reach out to me on social media, DM me through Instagram or LinkedIn, or you can email me, Andrea@theintentionaloptimist.com. Or you can just, if you're on my newsletter, hit reply, and I will always be the one to reply back to you. If you're in YouTube, and you want to see my face, you can just go to YouTube, my YouTube channel, where you can always leave a comment, and I will reply to those as well. But make sure you follow the show, because next week, the last episode of 2023, I'm going to give you a special preview of what's in the pipeline for 2024. I'm going to go deeper on some topics, maybe look at some things we're going to tackle. I've got lots of ideas, and I would love to hear from you. If you've got ideas for what you need to hear from me on in 2024, I can't wait to hear, and I can't wait to share. So until next time, my dear friend, stand tall and own